Hello, everyone. I'm Milton Stefanowicz, Executive Vice President and one of the co-founders of Getty Petroleum Corp. Over 30 years ago, I started in this business as an auto and truck mechanic. I managed service stations in metropolitan New York and spent much of my time working on customers' cars and trucks. As such, you might say that I've had quite a bit of hands-on experience in the gasoline business. Then, during the development of Power Test and Getty, I played an active role in developing and managing Getty's transportation fleet. I've had many years in the driver's seat and recognize how important you, our drivers, are in the overall success of Getty. The film you're about to see represents our first effort, together with the Travelers, our insurance carrier, to develop for you, and for all of us really, a program that's specific to our needs. We all well know the pride that I feel, and that we all feel, in the way we have grown and prospered in the past few years. We're doing more things, and we're doing them better than we ever would have thought possible, even as little as 5 years ago. And we're going to still do more, and do it even better in the future. We're committed to this plan. First, to provide you with the best equipment available, suited to our needs, and second, to place accessories on that equipment which have proven to be of value in helping you do your job better and safer. Many people talk about safety and how we've got to avoid claims from others because of the damage we can do. We're concerned about that, but of equal concern to us are you, the people who make Getty work. We don't want you injured. That's one of the major reasons for this program. We'd like to show you how to do a proper pre-trip vehicle inspection, the Getty way. It'll help you have a safer vehicle and certainly one that looks better. Our trucks, your truck, represents the best advertisement opportunity available, and it doesn't cost either of us a nickel. All we have to do is keep them clean, well-maintained, and most important, properly driven. The cleanliness and maintenance is up to us. The pre-trip inspection and proper driving are up to you. After the program, you'll have ample opportunity to present any questions you may have regarding the subjects covered. I'm equally sure you'll get correct answers. They may or may not be exactly the answers you expect, because there may be regulations involved, but the answers will be correct and honest.
One of the most frustrating problems that many truck drivers face is trying to do a day's work with a truck that has a defect or one that isn't operating properly. Fortunately, as a Getty driver, you shouldn't be faced with that problem. It's Getty's policy to provide you with a truck designed to do the job and one that is properly equipped and maintained. But a lot of maintenance depends on you. Sure, Getty has a regularly scheduled preventive maintenance program, but what about the little things that can go wrong between those scheduled visits to the shop? That's what we're going to talk about. Some people rely on the fact that there is a regulation telling us that drivers have to inspect certain things on their truck before starting a day's work. And if those things aren't working properly or are defective in some way, they must be repaired before starting out. Many people also rely on the requirement that a driver's vehicle inspection report be turned in daily, whether or not a defect is noted. We require those things too, not only because they are the law, but because they are just plain common sense and good business. Our vehicle inspection reports, or vehicle condition reports as we call them, come in 3-copy sets. The truck copy stays on the vehicle, and the mechanic who makes the necessary repairs certifies on it that he made them. The next driver to take that truck out also signs, but only to certify that he has seen the mechanic's repair certification. This program is designed to help you perform those inspections and report properly. You may have your own way of doing a pre-trip inspection, but we prefer to have you do it the Getty way, the way we've found to be most efficient. Before we begin to check the truck, let's mention a legitimate gripe that drivers sometimes have. the greasy seat and steering wheel. There's no doubt about it, it shouldn't be that way. And all of our shop people try to be careful. But sometimes it happens unintentionally. On the other hand, need I say more? We all know that there are times when you would rather be somewhere else. But that applies to our shop people too, especially when called out on a nasty night to fix something that could have been fixed, probably better and certainly more easily, in the shop before the vehicle got out on the road. And when something breaks on the road and requires road service, it's not only the cost of the broken part that must be considered, it's your time, late delivery, the mechanic's time spent not doing something else, and always the possibility of someone running into your disabled truck. It really all boils down to this. Drivers and mechanics are like lovers who fight, but can't get along without each other. Without you to report problems, the mechanic has lost one of his most valuable tools, you. You are his best helper because you find things he could never find. And without the mechanic, your truck won't last very long. So far, we've talked quite a bit, but haven't really said anything about what you're to check or how to check it. Well, here's a list. Horn, windshield wipers, steering, service brakes, parking brakes, lights and reflectors, tires, mirrors, coupling devices, and wheels and rims. Of course, you can't forget these. If they're not usable because they're dirty, or because they're knotted or otherwise damaged, report it. But those are the only things you are required by regulation to check. At Getty, we want to do more than the minimum. We're interested in what goes on under the hood. We want you to check electric circuit protection devices like these, and you can't use these as replacements. Fire extinguishers, warning devices, fitting boxes, frames, brake interlocks, and dust covers along with their safety chains. In short, we want to be, and we want you to be, as sure as you can that your workday is as uneventful as possible. Now let's look at the proper way, the Getty way, to do a good pre-trip inspection. As you walk up to your truck, you have a good opportunity to look underneath on the ground. See if any fluids are leaking from the tractor, and the trailer too, where product can leak. You probably won't see any puddles, and that's great. But now you're sure. For nighttime operations, we're sure you recognize your responsibility as a professional driver and carry a flashlight, one that works without hitting it, as soon as you turn on the switch. Before you get into the truck and start it up, check under the hood. You need to be sure all fluid levels, including power steering, oil, and coolant, are up to where they should be. The oil and power steering are pretty easy to check, and there's no real problem except possibly a hot dipstick. But the radiator is different. If the truck has been running and there's pressure in the radiator, you'll not want to remove the cap quickly because of the pressure. If you must take the cap off, do it slowly and bleed off pressure, taking advantage of the built-in safety detent. While you're looking under the hood, check for loose or frayed belts, small leaks, kinked air lines, or anything else that isn't normal. It doesn't take long, and nobody expects you to be a mechanic. Just be observant. Now let's get back to our list and take care of two items quickly. You should be in the driver's seat now. The horn is pretty easy. It works or it doesn't. The windshield wipers are almost as easy. Sure, they work or they don't, but do they really wipe clean? You may not be able to tell for certain if it's clear and dry when you start out, but if you find they don't wipe properly, report it when you return. At least make sure they don't hit the windshield frame. If the air is down, wait until you have adequate pressure. While we're talking about windshields, make sure yours is clean, inside and out. When you're in the driver's seat, check the mirrors so that you can adjust them as necessary. The one on the right is easy. Just use the switch. Now that we've covered the easy things that you already know about, we'll get a little more involved. One of the most important things is the steering system. You can't look under the truck and move the steering wheel at the same time, but you can easily check for steering free play. Don't check for inches of play, check for degrees. You do this by simply moving the wheel back and forth through the free play. 30 degrees is the maximum acceptable play, and that's really way too much because on a 22-inch diameter steering wheel, that's 5 3/4 inches, or on the face of a clock, about from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. 5 to 10 degrees is okay. With power steering, you'll have to stretch a little and get into a position where you can work the steering wheel and see the front left wheel. Start the engine, and while working the steering wheel back and forth, watch the front wheel for movement. The distance the steering wheel moves without moving the front wheel left or right is what you're looking for. With power steering, you may want to do this when you're ready to leave the cab. But remember, whether you have a power or manual system, it's necessary to have the front wheels pointing straight ahead when you check for play. Otherwise, the play is exaggerated. The next thing to check is the braking system. You'll check for leaks, pressure buildup rate, governor cutoff pressure. You'll find out if the low pressure warning device is working, and you'll check the parking and emergency systems. Start with the system pressure below 50 psi. When you turn on the switch, the warning device should work. You'll hear it and see it. It'll sound a warning and a light will illuminate at any pressure lower than 60 psi. If it doesn't work, report it and have it fixed before you leave. Now start the engine and run it at a fast idle, about 700 RPMs or so, and start timing when the pressure reaches 50 psi. Mentally note where the low pressure warning device cuts off. If it stopped below 60 or above 70, an adjustment may be needed after you finish for the day. Continue timing. If the pressure builds from 50 to 90 psi within 5 minutes, the buildup rate is okay. Continue the pressure buildup and check for the cutoff pressure. If it's below or above 120 psi, the governor probably needs adjustment. Next, check for leakage in the reservoir supply system. After you've shut the engine down and the pressure has had about a minute to stabilize, start timing for 2 minutes. Any loss of pressure greater than 3 psi should be reported and corrected before you leave. To check the service part of the brake system, start with the pressure in the normal operating range and push the foot brake to its stop. Allow the pressure to stabilize for 30 seconds, check the pressure, and start timing for 2 minutes. Any pressure loss greater than 5 psi should also be corrected before you leave. The next part of the system that needs to be checked is the trailer supply and the automatic emergency and parking system. There are 3 push-pull valves in the tractor, and each has a specific use. The red octagonal one is called the trailer air supply valve, and you're not supposed to use it for parking. Now that may seem kind of funny since pulling it out causes the trailer brakes to apply. But the brakes it applies are air brakes. And if you don't have spring brakes and there's a leak, the brakes will release. Because once you pull the valve knob out, no more air can get back to the trailer to resupply and compensate for the leak. Not too long ago, the valve was called the tractor protection valve. And that's good to remember because it does protect the air in the tractor system from leaking out through a trailer leak. If the air runs down and you don't pull the knob, it'll pop out by itself when the pressure gets down to somewhere between 45 and 20 psi, probably about 40 psi. The knob with the yellow diamond-shaped handle marked parking brake does the same thing to the trailer brakes when you pull it, but it also causes the tractor spring brakes to apply. When it does, the trailer air supply knob also pops out. The tractor parking valve, the blue knob, doesn't pop out. It just sits there until pulled to set the tractor spring brakes only. To check the system out, start with the air pressure in the normal operating range and all knobs pushed in. All brakes are operable, and you may even have your foot on the brake. Pull the yellow knob. The tractor spring brakes will apply, and the trailer air supply will pop out, causing the trailer brakes to apply. Neither one of these valves apply the trailer brakes. They just cause a valve in the trailer, the relay emergency valve, to apply the trailer brakes. Now, push the red knob, the trailer air supply, in. If there's enough air in the system, the trailer brakes should release, but the tractor's spring brakes should stay applied. If they don't release, build up some more air. If the trailer air supply popped when you pulled the tractor trailer park, and the trailer brakes released when you pushed it in, that part of the system is okay. Now, with everything released, that is, all knobs pushed in, pull the blue tractor park knob. Only the tractor spring brakes should apply. If they do, the system is working properly. You may have noticed that none of these valves are called an emergency valve, but the red knob, when pulled, causes an emergency application of the trailer brakes. The yellow one does that too, and also applies the tractor spring brakes. But all of these valves and emergency features don't really mean very much unless the brakes are properly adjusted. And that's something you'll be looking at next as you check underneath. But before you do, let's recap what's happened up to now. You've checked the steering for free play, checked for air loss with brakes released and applied, checked compressor buildup rate, governor cut in and out, and the low pressure warning devices. And you've checked the operation of the trailer supply, tractor trailer park, and tractor park valves. And without trying, you've checked the action of the trailer relay emergency valve. You all know what a brake chamber is. But did you know that when the brakes are properly adjusted and in the applied position, the angle between the slack adjuster and the push rod should be 90 degrees, like this? That's about what the applied position will look like after an adjustment. Maybe a little more than 90 degrees, like this, just so there's some tolerance between adjustments. What you really have is a range of adjustment that's acceptable. So, to help you out, our trucks are equipped with these adjustment indicators that tell you when an adjustment is needed. The maintenance department people will set the indicator where it should be for each axle on each vehicle individually. All you have to do in your pre-trip is to make sure you check it with the brakes applied. If adjustment is needed, have it done. Here's what to look for. If the clevis pin, which attaches the brake chamber pushrod clevis to the slack adjuster, goes beyond the indicator when the brakes are applied, an adjustment is needed. It's that simple. Also, take a look at the brake drums and brake hose and tubing while you're looking under the truck. Whether the truck is relatively new and well-maintained the way yours is, or an old junker, a broken brake drum will look the same and be just as ineffective for braking. Another thing to look for is loose suspension mount bolt nuts. If there's a rust streak or shiny spots, something needs checking by a mechanic, usually when you return. Also, while you're under there, make sure no one has wired an internal valve open. The next thing to check is the lights. You'll not want the stop lights lighted while doing this, so you'll have to do it with the engine shut down and the parking brake set. Turn on all lights, including the left turn signal and upper beams. Start at the front and check headlights, left front turn signal, front marker, and clearance lights. Those on the trailer, too. Wheel nuts, certainly to see if any are missing, but also for rust streaks indicating looseness. Springs that you can see, look for broken leaves. Loose fifth wheel mounting nuts, again possibly indicated by rust. Side marker lights and reflectors, trailer wheels and suspension, and rear lighting and reflectors. Talking about wheels and tires, It may be someone else's job to air the tires, but you are the one who needs the stability and braking that properly inflated tires help provide. You can kick them or beat them with a bar, but that just tells you if there's a serious difference in pressure. If in doubt, a tire gauge is the proper way. And while you're on the left side, check to be sure the 1203 placard is intact and visible. It's a good idea to have a rag with you to wipe off the lights and reflectors that you can reach. And by the way, those which you can reach are the most critical because they are the ones most likely to be in another motorist's field of view. Go on back to the tractor and turn on the right turn signal and lower beams. Walk along the right side and check the same things as you did on the left. Look at the part of the exhaust pipe you can see and note any carbon streaks indicating an exhaust leak. While you're on the right side, check the placard and mentally note the last DOT required test date. It can't be more than 2 years old. And when it's required, look for a pressure vacuum test marking which shouldn't be more than 1 year old. The fitting box should close tightly and stay closed. The internal discharge valve handles should have this kind of a fitting holding the valve cable to the handle. It's got some soft metal in it that melts at between 200 and 250 degrees Fahrenheit, so that in case of fire and you can't get to the handles, the material will melt and the valves will close. Sometimes a driver will replace that special fitting with a standard SAE nut when the original fails. You may have to do that to unload, but make sure you report it on your daily vehicle inspection report so the maintenance department can install the proper part. Of course, there's a remote closing device on the left side of the tank at the front, and it should be checked when you check the left side. If it's the cable type, such as you see here, and ours are, you can pull it anytime. And all that will happen is that it lifts this bar. If the internals are open, it'll close them. That's if the cable isn't stretched. Back on the right side, check the brake interlock contact to make sure the buttons are there. No button, no contact, and that means no brake interlock. That equals the possibility of driving away with hoses connected, and that's a no-no. Also, while you're there, make sure the pipe dust cover cam arms and safety chains are intact. You're almost finished, but there are a few more things to check. Go up front again and turn on the four-way flasher. Check those in front and then go to the rear and check those, along with the rear marker and clearance lights and placards. While you're back there, be sure your safety cones are in place and climb up top. You don't have to open domes anymore, but look for evidence of product leakage at dome gaskets. Make sure the domes are closed. Check vapor return bonnets and fittings, and fill level wires. And for goodness sakes, be careful. You are too valuable to us as a person to go and fall and injure yourself. Now for the last operation. Up front, with the flashers turned off, pull the cable and drain the moisture from the air system. After you've pulled the cable, you can check your emergency equipment. The reflector triangles, spare electric fuses if the tractor is equipped with fuses instead of circuit breakers, and the fire extinguisher. Make sure the inspection tag on the extinguisher is no more than 1 year old. And that's all there is to the Getty way of doing a pre-trip inspection. Remember, when you get out on the highway, you're our representative, and we want the public to know how good you are and that we're proud of you.
And now that you have viewed our first attempt to develop a program aimed at you, our drivers, it's your turn. Ask the questions. We believe that we've covered all bases on pre-trip inspection, but maybe not. So just let me emphasize that I welcome your comments and suggestions for improvements. We will alter or modify this training video if we feel it's advisable and within current governmental regulations. Thanks for your attention.